My boyfriend insisted, I need more me time alone, please respect that. I replied, of course, my love. Then I hired a private investigator to see what this me time entailed and got photos of him with another woman. The shocking revelation was me serving him eviction papers from my apartment during his next me time. Hello everyone. Thank you for being here with me today. Before I begin my story, I'd love to know which city you're joining us from. Please feel free to share in the comments. Now, let me take you into this story. My boyfriend insisted, I need more me time alone. Please respect that. I replied, of course, my love. Then I hired a private investigator to see what this me time entailed and got photos of him with another woman. The shocking revelation was me serving him eviction papers from my apartment during his next me time. I'm Susan. I'm 32 years old. And until about a month ago, I had a boyfriend, Keith. Keith is 29, and we'd been together for about 3 years. For the last 2 of those, we were living together. Well, let me be very specific, because this part becomes important. He was living with me, in my apartment. This is a place I bought myself, with my own down payment from my own savings, long before I ever met him. My name is the only name on the mortgage. My name is the only name on the deed. I really thought things were good. You know? They were comfortable. That's the word I always used. Comfortable. I have a pretty demanding job in marketing. The hours are long, the stress is high, but the salary is good, and I'm up for a big promotion soon, so I've been putting in the extra hours. Keith, he was a part-time personal trainer. He was always talking about building his online brand, which mostly seemed to involve him making protein shakes and taking selfies. I was the one who paid the lion's share of everything. The mortgage, the utilities, the groceries, the vacations. And I was fine with it. I truly was. I thought we were a team. I thought I was investing in us, in his future, which I believed was our future. I loved him. I really did. I loved our routines. I'd come home, tired from a long day of meetings, and he'd be there. We'd make dinner together, usually. Me cooking, him leaning against the counter, telling me about his day. We'd argue over what to watch on Netflix. We had our inside jokes, the silly, stupid little things that make a relationship feel real. I thought he was my soft place to land. Then, about 2 months ago, things started to feel off. It started subtly. A little more distance. He started being a lot more protective of his phone, angling it away from me when he was texting. I'd try to cuddle up to him on the sofa, and he'd be a little stiff. I told myself I was just being paranoid. I was stressed from work, this big promotion was weighing on me, and I was probably just projecting. But then, he sat me down. It was a Tuesday. I remember that so clearly. It was a Tuesday night, we had just finished dinner, takeout, because I'd been too tired to cook. I was in the kitchen, scraping the plates, loading the dishwasher. He was just standing there, leaning against the counter, not helping, just watching me. He had this look on his face. This serious, almost rehearsed look. Susan, he said. I stopped, the dish rag in my hand. Yeah? What's wrong? It's not that anything is wrong, he said, and he started pacing a little, from the fridge to the sink. It's just. I've been thinking a lot lately. And I feel like I've lost a bit of myself. You know? In the relationship. I just stared at him, completely baffled. The dishwasher was humming. Lost yourself? What do you mean? He sighed, and he ran a hand through his hair, a gesture I used to find charming. I just need more me time. You know, time alone. To recharge. To pursue my hobbies. To just be alone with my thoughts. I was still holding the plate. Hobbies? What hobbies? Since when do you have hobbies you can't do here? Oh, he said, waving his hand vaguely. Reading. Thinking. Just stuff. You're always so busy with work, and I'm always just here. I need my own space, my own time. He was so insistent. And that's what really got me. It felt practiced. Like he had looked up these words in a self-help book. He came over and put his hands on my shoulders. His hands were cold. He looked at me with those big, earnest brown eyes, the ones that I used to love, the ones that could get him out of anything. I love you, Susan, he said, his voice so sincere. This isn't about us. This is about me. I just need this. Please respect that. Alarm bells, right? Tiny, little bells started to ring in the back of my mind. But what do you do? He's the man you love. He's asking for space. If I said no, I'd be the clingy, controlling girlfriend. I'd be the one who didn't support him. So, I took a deep breath. I forced a smile. I put the plate in the dishwasher and closed it. Of course, I said. Of course, my love. Whatever you need. I meant it. Mostly. But as I watched him walk away, looking all relieved, a cold, little knot had formed in my stomach. And as I would soon find out, that knot was my gut. And it was screaming at me. So, I tried to be the cool, understanding girlfriend. I really, truly did. I told myself that this was healthy. That mature relationships are built on trust and respecting each other's space. I told my best friend Pam about it over lunch, and she made a face, but I defended him. No, it's good, I said, he's being proactive about his mental health. But the whole thing just felt wrong. It didn't take long for the patterns to show up. His me time wasn't just a random afternoon here or there. It was specific. It was always Wednesday evening and always Saturday evening. Every single week. Like clockwork. Okay, I thought, trying to rationalize it. Maybe he's joined a class? A poker game? A book club? But he was so secretive about it. And then there was the way he dressed. I came home from work one Wednesday, absolutely exhausted. My boss had just piled a huge new project on my desk, the one that was tied to my potential promotion, and I'd been in back-to-back budget meetings all day. I was fried. I kicked off my heels at the door, my feet were throbbing. All I wanted was to put on my pajamas, eat a bowl of cereal for dinner, and just collapse. I walked into the bedroom. And there was Keith. He wasn't in sweatpants. He wasn't getting ready to read on the couch. He was standing in front of the full-length mirror, in his good jeans. The expensive dark wash ones. He had on a new shirt, one I hadn't seen before, a nice button-down. His hair was perfect. And I could smell his cologne from the doorway. The good stuff. The one I bought him for Christmas. I just stood there. Hey, I said, trying to keep my voice casual. Going somewhere nice? He jumped, like I'd caught him doing something. He turned around, smoothing the front of his shirt. Oh, hey babe. No. Just, me time. I'm just going to a coffee shop. To read. My brain just short-circuited. A coffee shop? I said. At 7 o'clock at night? Dressed like that? He got defensive. Instantly. What, I can't look nice for myself? God, Susan. This is what I'm talking about. I'm just going to go read. Okay, I said, holding up my hands. Sorry. Just, you look great. He gave me a quick, dry kiss on the cheek. It felt like a formality. Thanks for understanding. Don't wait up. and he was out the door. I stood there, in our bedroom, in my work clothes, smelling his cologne in the air. He was going to a coffee shop. The alarm bells in my head got a little louder. Then came Saturday. I had suggested, maybe on Thursday, that we could finally have a date night. We haven't had one in ages, I said. Maybe we could try that new Italian place? Oh, yeah, maybe, he'd said, not looking up from his phone. Sounds good. So Saturday comes. I get home from running errands. I'm actually a little excited. I put on a nice top. I did my makeup. I was in the kitchen, pouring a glass of wine, ready to start our date night. He walked out of the bathroom. Freshly showered. Steam rolling out behind him. He was wearing his best shirt. His hair was perfect. He was checking his watch. My heart just sank. Oh, I said, my voice flat. You're going out? He looked at me, and he had the audacity to look annoyed. Babe, I told you, he said. Saturday is my me time. Remember? We talked about this. I need this. You're taking me time tonight? I said. I thought we were going to dinner. We can go to dinner any other night, Susan, he said, sighing, like I was a child. I need this. Please. Just respect it. He didn't even look sorry. He just looked impatient. He was out the door 5 minutes later. I was left standing in my kitchen, in my date night top, with 2 glasses of wine. The real kicker was when he'd get home. He'd breeze in around 11 or midnight. He'd be all smiles, humming to himself. And if I asked even the most casual, non-interrogating question, "So, what did you end up doing?" his head would snap up. What? Why are you checking up on me? I told you I just needed to be alone. Why can't you just trust me? God, Susan, this is exactly why I need my own space. You're so controlling. He would get so defensive, so angry, that he'd turn it all around on me. I was the bad guy for being suspicious. I was the one invading his privacy. I was the controlling one. After a few weeks of this, I started to feel like I was losing my mind. I couldn't sleep. I was jumpy. I was sad. My work was suffering. That big promotion felt like it was slipping through my fingers. My gut was in a permanent, tight knot. He was gaslighting me, and a part of me knew it. But the other part, the part that loved him, the part that had built a life with him, it just kept making excuses. Until one night, I just couldn't anymore. The breaking point came after about 6 weeks of this me-time nonsense. It was another Wednesday. He had just left. The smell of his cologne was still hanging in the air, thick and sweet. It made me want to gag. I was sitting on the sofa. The one I paid for. In the apartment I owned. And I was feeling like a prisoner in my own home. I was staring at the blank TV screen. I was replaying every conversation, every defensive answer, every time he'd called me controlling. Am I going crazy? I whispered to the empty room. Am I the jealous, horrible girlfriend he's making me out to be? And then a different thought, a clear, cold, sharp thought, popped into my head. What if I'm not crazy? What if I'm just right? I'm not proud of what I did next. Let me just get that out of the way. I've always believed that if you have to snoop, the relationship is already over. But I'm not a fool, either. And I was tired of feeling sick to my stomach. I was tired of crying in the shower so he wouldn't hear me. I needed facts. I unlocked my phone. I opened a private browser window. My fingers were shaking. I typed in the words, "private investigator near me." I felt so cliché. So dramatic. Like a character in a bad soap opera. I almost closed the browser. I thought, this is insane, Susan. You're insane. But then I thought about his face when he'd said, "Why are you checking up on me?" The coldness in his eyes. The total lack of empathy. I clicked the link for a local agency. It had good reviews. Evans Investigations. Discreet, professional, fast. I spent about an hour on their website, just reading. Reading the testimonials. Reading about what they do. Then I took a deep breath, and I called the number. A man answered, his voice was all business. Evans Investigations, how can I help you? My voice was so shaky, I could barely get the words out. Hi, I need some help. I think my boyfriend might be. I couldn't even say it. You suspect your partner is being unfaithful, ma'am? His voice was kind, but not emotional. He'd clearly had this call 1,000 times. Yes, I whispered. Okay. We can help with that. He explained the process. It was exactly like in the movies. Surveillance. Photos. He needed a picture of Keith. A picture of his car. His license plate. His schedule. His schedule. I almost laughed, a bitter, tiny laugh. His schedule is easy, I said, my voice suddenly firm. He'll be leaving our apartment this Saturday at approximately 6:30 p.m. The PI, Mr. Evans, he quoted me the price. It was not cheap. It was more than my mortgage payment. It was a serious, significant amount of money. I looked around my living room. At my sofa. My lamp. My art on the walls. My life. And I thought, what is my sanity worth? What is the truth worth? Okay, I said. Do it. I need facts. I don't want to live on a sick feeling anymore. You'll have them, he said. I hung up. I transferred the deposit. I felt a strange, hollow mix of shame and relief. No matter what happened, at least I would know. The peace of mind, or the confirmation of disaster. I figured it was priceless. The next few days were absolute torture. I had to pretend like everything was normal. I had to kiss Keith goodbye on Saturday. Have a good me time, honey, I said, my voice miraculously steady. Thanks, babe, he said, kissing my forehead. Thanks for being so understanding. I closed the door behind him and leaned against it, my heart pounding so hard I thought it would break through my ribs. I knew, somewhere out there, a man I'd just paid a lot of money to was probably sitting in a car down the street, waiting to follow him. I didn't hear from Mr. Evans all weekend. Or Monday. Or Tuesday. By Wednesday, I was convinced I'd wasted all that money. I was convinced Keith really was just sitting in a very well-lit, cologne-filled coffee shop, reading self-help books, and that I was, in fact, the world's biggest paranoid idiot. Then, on Friday afternoon, my phone buzzed. I was at my desk, trying to finish a marketing proposal. That big promotion was still on the table, and I was trying to focus. I glanced at my phone. It was an email. From an address I didn't recognize. The subject line was just 2 words, case update. My heart just stopped. It felt like it seized up in my chest. I couldn't breathe. I looked around the office. It was a normal Friday afternoon. People were laughing by the coffee machine, keyboards were clacking. Everyone was gearing up for the weekend. And my world was about to end. I felt completely exposed, like everyone could see what was happening. I grabbed my phone and my laptop. I'm just going to a focus room, I mumbled to my coworker. I all but ran to one of the small, private, windowless rooms we have for calls. I went in. I locked the door. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely type the password to unlock my laptop. I opened the email. It was from Mr. Evans. It was short. Terse. Ms. Susan. Here is the file from the 2 surveillance states you requested. The subject's name is Holly. Her address is included in the report. Please let me know if you require further services. I stared at the name. Holly. Holly. It wasn't even a name I knew. I scrolled through his phone contacts in my head. No Holly. My first reaction, it wasn't rage. It wasn't even sadness, not right away. It was just cold. A switch flipped inside me. It was like all the love, all the warmth, all the us I'd been holding on to, just evaporated. All the little inconsistencies. The weird excuses. The cologne. The defensive anger. The me time. It all just clicked into place. There was a zip file attached. k.miller_case_file. I clicked it. It downloaded. I opened the folder. There were pictures. So many pictures. They were time-stamped. The first set was from last Wednesday. The first picture, it was them. Keith. And a woman. She was pretty, I guess. Blonde. They were just holding hands. Walking into a restaurant. A nice one, that new Italian place I had been dying to try. The one he said was too expensive when I'd suggested it. They were just holding hands. But they weren't walking like friends. They were walking like a couple. And Keith, he was beaming. He looked happier than I'd seen him look in months. The second one, they were inside. At a table. Clinking wine glasses. She was laughing, her head thrown back. And he was leaning in, his whole body angled toward her, smiling at her like he used to smile at me. I felt the bile rise in my throat. I clicked the next one. They were outside, later. Leaning against a car. Her car. And they were kissing. It wasn't a little peck. It wasn't a friend's goodbye. It was a deep, passionate, movie-style kiss. His hands were in her hair. Her hands were on his chest. Clear as day, under a streetlight. I just stared. I think I stopped breathing. I clicked through the rest. Pictures from Saturday. Him going into an apartment building, her apartment building, at 7 p.m. Him leaving just after midnight, looking rumpled and happy. The PI had even gotten a shot of them through a bar window, looking cozy, his arm draped around the back of her booth. The works. All the blood just drained from my body. I felt cold. Cold. Like the blood in my veins had turned to slush. He wasn't just needing space. He was using my apartment. My life. My money. He was using me as his home base, his safety net, while he was out screwing around with someone else. The disrespect. That's what hit me. It wasn't even the cheating, not at first. It was the blatant, astonishing disrespect. To lie to my face, day after day, week after week. To eat my food, to sleep in my bed, all while he was living this double life. I sat there, in that tiny, windowless room, for I don't know how long. An hour? 2. I didn't cry. I just got very, very calm. I thought about confronting him. I thought about driving to his gym and screaming at him. I thought about packing his things in trash bags and throwing them out the window. But what was the point? He'd just lie more. He'd deny it. He'd gaslight me. Those pictures are old. She's just a friend. You're crazy. You had me followed? No. This betrayal was so calculated. So cold. It needed a different approach. My approach. I closed the folder. I dragged it to the trash. I emptied the trash. I deleted the email from my work computer, and then I deleted it from my deleted items. I stood up. I went to the little bathroom down the hall. I looked in the mirror. My face was pale, but my eyes were clear. And they were hard. I washed my hands. I fixed my lipstick. And I walked back out to my desk. I had a budget meeting at 3 p.m. And I absolutely nailed it. Because I wasn't just a woman who'd been cheated on. I was a woman with a plan. I didn't confront him that Friday night. I went home. He was already there, making a smoothie in the kitchen, his gym clothes still on. He'd just gotten back from his part-time job. "Hey, babe," he said, all smiles, turning off the blender. "How was work?" "It was fine," I said. My voice was even. I was surprised at how even it was. Just tired. "Big project, you know." "Yeah, you've been stressed," he said. He sounded so sympathetic. The nerve. I walked over to him. I put my arms around his waist. He hugged me back, but it was a one-armed hug. His other hand was on his phone. I kissed him on the cheek. It felt like kissing a cold, dead fish. Like kissing a stranger. "I'm just going to take a long bath," I said. "Okay, babe. I'll order a pizza." We ate pizza. We watched TV. I acted like everything was completely, 100% normal. I asked about his day. I laughed at his stupid jokes. I was a better actor than I ever knew. We went to bed. I let him kiss me goodnight. I turned my back to him, and I pretended to be asleep. But I wasn't sleeping. My mind was racing. I was planning. The next morning, Saturday, I woke up before him. This was my usual routine, anyway. I always woke up early to get a head start. But this Saturday was different. I went to my home office. I closed the door. My first call was to my lawyer. I have a lawyer, Sarah, who I keep on retainer. She mostly handles small business contracts for my freelance marketing work. She's smart, she's tough, and she doesn't mess around. I'd never had to call her about something like this. She picked up on her cell, even on a Saturday. "Hi, Sarah," I said, my voice low, even though Keith was still asleep. "It's Susan. I have a question about property law." "Susan, hi. Everything okay?" "Not really," I said. "I need to understand the eviction process for a non-leaseholding occupant." I explained the situation. I was clinical. I was detached. It was like I was talking about a stranger. He's been living with me for 2 years. He's not on the lease. He's not on the mortgage. It's my apartment, I bought it before we met. He pays no rent. No utilities. He's, for all intents and purposes, a long-term guest. There was a pause. "Okay," Sarah said, and her voice was all business. "This is relatively straightforward. Because he's not on any lease and he pays no rent, he's not a legal tenant. He's an occupant." "An occupant," I repeated. "Correct. Which means you need to give him formal, written notice to vacate. Given the duration he's been there, 30 days is the standard and legally safest route. A 30-day written notice." "Got it," I said. "Can you draft one for me today?" "I'll pay the rush fee." "Absolutely," she said. "You're the sole owner?" He has no claim? None. I have all the paperwork to prove it. Good, she said. I'll have it in your inbox by noon. My second call was to my building management. Our building has a strict front desk. Hi, I said. This is Susan in 12A. I'm just confirming the building's policy on changing the locks. And on serving a notice to vacate for a guest. They confirmed what my lawyer said. As the sole owner, I had every right. My lawyer's email came through at 11:30 a.m. A formal, terrifying-looking PDF. Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Notice to vacate. It had Keith's full name on it. It had my name on it. It had the date, 30 days from now, November 9th. I printed it. My hands were steady. I put it in a plain white envelope. And then, I waited. I had to live through that entire Saturday. Acting normal. Acting like the loving, supportive, stupid girlfriend. Keith, of course, was completely oblivious. He was cheerful. He was excited. It was Saturday, after all. His me-time night. Around 5 p.m., he started his routine. The shower. The long, hot shower, using my water. The careful selection of the outfit. The good shirt. The expensive jeans I probably paid for. The cologne. That cologne that now made me want to gag. He came out of the bedroom, looking fantastic. Smelling fantastic. Okay, babe, I'm heading out, he said, checking his watch. I was on the sofa, reading a book. I hadn't read a single page in 3 hours. I looked up. I smiled. Okay, honey. Have a good me time. Thanks for being so understanding, he said. He leaned in to kiss me. I almost flinched. I could smell Holly on him already, even though he hadn't even left. But I didn't flinch. I let him kiss me. Of course, I said. The door closed. I sat there, listening to his footsteps fade down the hall. And then I got my keys, my phone, and the envelope. I wasn't going to just give it to him when he got home. Oh, no. I needed one last piece of confirmation. I needed to see it with my own eyes. I waited an hour. Just to be sure he was settled. Then I called Mr. Evans, the PI. Mr. Evans, I said. It's Susan. I have a quick question. Is he with her? Hold on, he said. I heard some typing. The subject, Keith? Yes. He arrived at the female's address at 6:45 p.m. He is still inside. Affirmative, I said, my voice cold. Thank you. I hung up. I got in my car. And I drove to her address. The PI's report had been very, very thorough. I knew her building. I knew her neighborhood. It was about 20 minutes from my place in a newer, trendy part of town. I didn't park in front. I wasn't stupid. I parked across the street, down a bit, under a tree. I had a clear view of the front door of her building. And then I waited. I sat there, in my car, in the dark. 8 p.m. 9 p.m. The dashboard clock just ticked. 9:30 p.m. I bought a coffee from a drive-thru on the way, but it just got cold in the cup holder. I couldn't drink it. I couldn't eat. I couldn't listen to music. I just sat. And watched. What kind of woman am I? I wondered. Am I pathetic, sitting in a car, spying on my own boyfriend? No. I was a woman gathering her facts. I was a woman taking back control. I was a woman who was about to close a very, very bad deal. Around 10:15 p.m., the front door of her building opened. My heart hammered against my ribs. It was them. They came out, and they were laughing. He had his arm draped over her shoulder, and she was tucked in close, her head leaning against his chest. They looked happy. They looked like a real couple. They walked to her car, which was parked right in front. And they stood there. He said something, and she laughed. She reached up and fixed his collar. And then he leaned in. And she leaned in. It wasn't a quick goodbye peck. It was long. Passionate. The same kind of kiss I'd seen in the photographs. He kissed her like he'd never kissed me. Not in a long, long time. My stomach turned. It was a physical, violent lurch. But my resolve hardened into steel. This was his choice. He had made his choice over and over again. I watched them finally pull apart. He said something, she laughed, and then he turned and walked to his own car, which was parked just down the street. I waited until he turned the corner. I started my car, quietly. I pulled out. And I drove home, taking a route I knew would be faster. I got home 15 minutes before him. I parked. I went upstairs. I went into my apartment. I sat on the sofa, in the exact same spot he'd left me in. I put the white envelope on the cushion next to me. And I waited. At 10:47 p.m., his key turned in the lock. The door opened. He walked in, all smiles, humming to himself. He didn't even see me at first. "Hey," he said, a little surprised, as he was dropping his keys in the bowl by the door. "You're still up?" I was just sitting there, watching him. "Yeah," I said. My voice was perfectly even. Had some things to take care of. He walked over, dropping his keys. "Oh yeah? Good day?" "Productive," I said. I looked up at him. That stupid, happy, guilty look on his face. "Good me time?" He beamed. A big, fake, happy smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Oh, it was wonderful," he chirped, heading to the bedroom. "So relaxing. Just what I needed." "Good," I said. "I'm glad." I waited. I let him get changed. I heard him brushing his teeth. I heard the whoosh of his phone as he sat on the bed, scrolling. Probably texting her. "Good night. Had a great time. Can't wait for Wednesday." I waited until he was settled. Until he was comfortable. Then, I stood up. I picked up the envelope. And I walked into the bedroom. He was lying there, propped up against the pillows. My pillows. His phone was glowing in his hand. He looked up when I walked in, and he looked a little annoyed. Like I was interrupting his precious new text glow. "Yeah," he said. I just stood at the foot of the bed for a moment. I looked at him. The man I had loved. The man I had supported. The man who had just lied to my face, in my bed, after coming from another woman's arms. "This is for you," I said. My voice was quiet, but it didn't shake. Not one bit. I held out the plain white envelope. He looked at it, confused. "What is it?" He took it from me. His fingers brushed mine, and I pulled my hand back like I'd been burned. "Bills? I thought you handled the bills." "Sort of," I said. "It's an eviction notice." His face. Oh, man. His face. It's a moment I will replay in my mind for the rest of my life. It was a masterpiece of warring emotions. It went from confusion to disbelief to a flicker of panic. And then, when he saw I wasn't smiling, to anger. What the hell, Susan, he said, his voice rising as he sat up, throwing his phone on the bed. Is this a joke? This isn't funny. It's no joke, Keith, I said. I pulled out my phone. I know about Holly. I saw the color drain from his face. He looked like he'd been punched. But he still tried to bluff. Holly? I don't know any Holly. Really? I said. Because you seem to know her pretty well about 45 minutes ago. I tapped my phone screen. And I showed him one of the pictures. Just one. The one I had taken from my car. The long, passionate kiss under the streetlight. Clear as day. He stared at the photo. Then he stared at me. His mouth opened and closed, like a fish. I can explain, he stammered. No need, I said. I kept my voice calm. I kept it detached. It was driving him crazy, I could see it. The explanation is pretty clear. You've been having an affair. Susan, please, it just happened. You've been lying to me for months, I continued, cutting him off. My voice was like ice. You've been doing it while living under my roof. My roof, Keith. You've been eating my food, sleeping in my bed, using my hot water, all while you were out with her. I took a breath. The disrespect is astounding. Frankly. He just sat there, speechless, the eviction notice clutched in his hand. So, I said, and I gestured to the envelope. As I said. That is a formal, legal notice. You have 30 days. The date is on there. It's November 9th. I expect you to be out by then. Susan, you can't. He started, his voice cracking, the tears finally coming. You can't do this. I can, I said. And I am. 30 days, Keith. We can discuss how you want to get your things, but the decision is final. I turned around. I walked out of the bedroom. I didn't slam the door. I closed it, softly. I went to the hall closet. I got a pillow and the spare blanket. I went back to the living room. I slept on the couch. And I'm not kidding when I say this, it was, ironically, the best, deepest, most peaceful sleep I had had in weeks. I woke up the next morning feeling free. But the real fun, the real entitlement, that was just beginning. I woke up on the couch Sunday morning. I mean, really woke up. It felt like I'd been asleep for 2 months and I was finally awake. The sun was streaming in through the windows of my apartment. I stretched, and for the first time in I don't know how long, that tight, anxious knot in my stomach was gone. It was just quiet. I got up. I went to the kitchen. I started to make coffee. I was looking forward to it. He was already up. He was pacing in the living room, back and forth, back and forth. His hair was a mess. His eyes were red and puffy. He looked like he hadn't slept at all. Good. The eviction notice was on the coffee table. It looked like he'd crumpled it up into a ball and then tried to smooth it out again. He saw me, and he just zeroed in, like a hawk. Susan, he started. His voice was trembling, but this time it wasn't sad. It was angry. We need to talk about this. I just looked at him. I turned to the coffee machine, which had just finished brewing. There's nothing to talk about, Keith. It's all in the notice. You can't just kick me out, he said, and his voice got louder. This is my home, too. I stopped. I was holding the coffee pot. I turned around, very slowly. I almost laughed. I really, almost laughed in his face. Actually, Keith, I said, and my voice was so calm, it was like I was discussing the weather. It's my apartment. My name is on the mortgage. My name is on the deed. You are not on the lease. You are not a tenant. I poured myself a cup of coffee. I added my cream. You are a guest, I continued, taking a little sip. A long-term one, sure. But still a guest. And your welcome has been officially revoked. The entitlement. Wow. It was like a switch flipped in him, too. The teary, I can explain person from Saturday night was gone. He was gone. Now, it was indignant Keith. After everything we've been through, he shouted. 3 years, Susan. 3 years of my life. And you're throwing it all away over one little mistake? I raised an eyebrow. I took another slow sip of my coffee. It was hot, and it was perfect. One little mistake? I repeated. I let the words hang in the air. Keith, this wasn't a one-time slip-up at an office party. This was a calculated, ongoing affair. You built a whole routine around it. You invented me time so you could go see her. You lied to my face every single Wednesday and every single Saturday, for months. That is not little. That is a betrayal. He started crying then. Real tears, I think. But they didn't move me. Not anymore. I was all out of sympathy. But where will I go? He whimpered, and he collapsed onto the sofa. My sofa. I can't afford a place on my own right now. You know that. And he was right. I did know that. As I said, he worked part-time. He was building his brand. His income barely covered his car payment and his fancy gym clothes. I paid for our life. I paid for the roof over his head. I paid for the food he ate. I paid for the vacations he went on. I had been fine with that when I thought we were a team. When I thought I was supporting his dream. Now I just saw him for what he was. A mooch. A con artist. That sounds like a you problem, Keith, I said, sipping my coffee. You have 30 days. That's more than most people get. That's a full month. I suggest you start looking. I turned to go to my office. You have Holly, right? I added, because I just couldn't help myself. Maybe she has a couch you can crash on. Or a spare room. His head snapped up. His eyes were flashing. Don't you dare bring her into this. A bit late for that, isn't it? I said. You brought her into our life, Keith. Into my home, effectively. Just then, his phone, which was on the coffee table, rang. He glanced at it. The screen lit up. I didn't see the name. But he grabbed it, his hand shaking, and he silenced it. Fast. Probably Holly, I thought. Wondering where her me-time buddy was. The rest of that Sunday was a nightmare. It was a blur of him alternating between crying, yelling, and trying to bargain. What if I break it off with her? Right now. I'll do it. No. Can we try counseling? I'll go. I'll do all the work. No. The trust is gone, Keith. It's broken. Don't you love me anymore, Susan? After 3 years? I just looked at him. The person I loved wouldn't have done this. You need to leave. The kicker, though, the real cherry on this garbage sundae, came that evening. That Sunday evening, I was in my home office, trying to get some work done. I was trying to salvage my promotion, trying to just ignore the bad vibes in the living room. My phone rang. I was screening my calls. I looked at the screen. Wayne. Wayne is Keith's older brother. He's 35. And he has always been, a lot. He's a bulldozer of a person. Very loud, very opinionated, and he's always had this attitude of my little brother can do no wrong. If Keith got in a fight, it was the other kid's fault. If Keith lost a job, it was the boss's fault. I sighed. I knew this was coming. Keith had clearly called his big brother. I let it ring twice, then I picked up. Hello, Wayne. Susan. No, hi, no, how are you? Just my name, spoken like a curse. Keith just told me what happened. Then you know the situation, I said, and I started shuffling some papers on my desk. I wasn't going to give him my full attention. You're being incredibly cruel, he stated. It wasn't an opinion. It was a fact, in his mind. Incredibly cruel. You know he made a mistake. People make mistakes. You're just going to throw him out on the street? Wayne, I said, and I rubbed the bridge of my nose. With all due respect, this is between Keith and me. And he wasn't thrown out. He was given a formal, 30-day notice to find alternative accommodation. Because he chose to have an affair. 4 months. I heard him huff on the other end. A loud, dramatic sigh. He's devastated, Susan. You're breaking his heart. He broke mine, Wayne, I said, and my voice was harder now. What about that? And then he said it. The line. The line that made me realize that this whole family was completely and utterly delusional. And what about all the time he's invested in this relationship? Wayne demanded, his voice rising. What about the emotional labor? He supported you in your career. He was there for you. I actually laughed. It just bubbled out of me. A short, sharp, bitter laugh. Emotional labor? I asked. Are you kidding me, Wayne? He was supporting me by lying to my face and sleeping with another woman? He was systematically deceiving me. I cut him off, and living off me while he did it. That is not labor, Wayne. That is sabotage. That's a con. He was sputtering. He wasn't used to being challenged. You are cold, Susan. You'll regret this. Keith is a wonderful person. You're making a huge mistake. The only mistake I made was trusting him, I said. He has 30 days. I suggest he uses that time productively to find a new apartment instead of just calling you to whine. Goodbye, Wayne. And I hung up on him. It felt good. Keith spent most of that Monday holed up in the spare room, which used to be my office, then became his creative space that he never used. He was on the phone a lot. I could hear him through the door, his voice all dramatic and sad. I just can't believe she's doing this to me. Yeah, after all I did for her. The atmosphere in the apartment was thick with resentment. I felt like I was living with a hostile, sulking ghost. But I was not budging. I even called Mr. Evans, the PA, again. I put him on retainer for the next 30 days. I said, I don't need any more surveillance, but I want you on standby. In case things get difficult. He just said, understood, ma'am. And I'd already looked into what it takes to get a locksmith scheduled for day 31. Keith thought I was bluffing. Or that I'd cave. He really didn't know me very well at all. We were about 10 days into the 30-day notice. And let me tell you, those 10 days felt like 10 years. Keith's initial shock and his tearful, pleading let's work this out phase ended pretty quickly when he realized I wasn't caving. So, he morphed into a new person. A weird combination of a sulking teenager, a passive-aggressive roommate from hell, and an entitled brat. He was still here, obviously. He hadn't packed a single box. Not one. He just existed in my space, making the apartment feel like a damn war zone. His new tactic was to try and make my life as uncomfortable as possible. It was little things at first. I'm an early riser for work. I always am. I'd go to get in the shower, and the water would be ice cold. Just freezing. He had clearly gotten up before me and just stood there, running the hot water until it was gone. I'd come out, shivering, wrapped in a towel. And he'd be in the kitchen, making coffee, looking smug. "Oh," he'd say, all innocent. "Was the water cold? Oops. I must have used it all up. My bad." Then there were the notes. I'd go to the fridge to get milk for my coffee, and there'd be a post-it note stuck to the carton. "Some people don't appreciate loyalty." In all caps. I'd just rip it off, throw it in the trash, and go about my day. But it was grating. It was like being pecked to death by a stupid, entitled duck. The worst, though, was when I had to work from home. I had a big, important project I was trying to get done, the one that was tied to my potential promotion. My boss was letting me work from home to focus. Bad idea. I was on a very important Zoom call. It wasn't just my boss. It was the vice president of the company. I was in the middle of presenting my data, sharing my screen. And suddenly, from the spare room, music started blasting. And it wasn't just any music. It was the saddest, mopiest, most depressing music you can imagine. Like, My Life Is Over emo rock. And it was loud. So loud, my boss actually winced on the camera. "Susan," my boss said. "Is everything okay over there?" I felt a hot flash crawl up my neck. I was mortified. My whole career, my promotion, it was all flashing before my eyes. "I'm so sorry," I said, trying to smile, my voice high and tight. "Just a roommate issue." 1 second. I hit the mute button on my mic. I marched to the spare room, and I pounded on the door. "Keith. Turn it down. I'm in a meeting. A very important meeting." The music got louder for a second, a blast of angry guitar. Then it went off abruptly. I went back to my desk, my heart pounding with pure rage. I unmuted myself. "Sorry about that," I said, my voice shaking. As I was saying, it was awful. It was annoying. But it was manageable. I just kept my eye on the prize, November 9th. The date on the notice. I was counting down the days. But I should have known he wouldn't make it easy. And I should have known his brother would get involved again. It was a Wednesday. About 2 weeks into the notice period. I was working from home again, but this time I was doing it from a Starbucks, just to get some peace. I came home around 4 p.m. I was tired. I was ready for the day to be over. The first thing I noticed was a strange, muddy pair of work boots by the front door. Boots I didn't recognize. My heart sank. I walked into the living room, and there he was. Wayne. Sitting on my sofa. His boots were off, but he was still, just there. Like he owned the place. Keith was sitting in the armchair, looking smug. He looked like a little kid who had just tattletaled and brought in his big brother for backup. "Susan," Wayne declared. He didn't stand up. He just pointed at me. "We need to talk. This has gone on long enough." I dropped my bag by the door. I crossed my arms. "Wayne, I've already told you. This isn't up for discussion." "It is now," Wayne said, crossing his own arms, trying to mirror me. He's a big guy, and I'm sure he thought he was intimidating. He's not going anywhere. "Excuse me?" "He has rights," Wayne said, leaning forward, his elbows on his knees. "You can't just evict him like this. We've spoken to a friend. A friend who knows about tenancy laws. He's been here 2 years. He has occupant's rights. You're gonna have to take us to court. And that'll get messy. Oh, this was a new level of stupid. They'd clearly gotten some terrible, off-the-cuff advice from someone who had no idea what they were talking about. He's not a tenant, Wayne, I said, and my voice was dangerously calm. He's an occupant who has been given lawful notice. My lawyer. And I made sure to stress that word. My lawyer assures me my position is solid. He has no rights to my property. This isn't a tenancy issue. This is a long-term guest who has overstayed his welcome. Keith, emboldened by his brother's presence, finally chimed in from his chair. Yeah, Susan. You can't just treat me like trash. I put years into this relationship. I decorated this place. I looked around the living room. At my furniture. My art. My rugs. You picked out a bath mat, Keith, I said, my voice flat. A bath mat. And a lamp. That was the extent of your decorating. This is where it got dirty. Wayne stood up then. He was taller than me, and he clearly tried to use it to intimidate me, standing over me. If you force him out, Wayne said, his voice low and threatening, we'll make sure everyone knows what kind of woman you are. All your friends. Your colleagues. Even your family. A threat. Cute. I just looked at him. I wasn't scared. I was just done. Are you threatening to slander me, Wayne? I asked, my voice just as low. Because Keith decided to cheat, and I'm unwilling to continue subsidizing his lifestyle and his infidelity? Is that the story you're going to tell? Wayne actually puffed up. It's not slander if it's true. You're being a heartless bastard. Okay, we're done here, I said. I pointed to the door. The notice stands. He has until November 9th. If his belongings aren't out by then, they'll be placed in storage at his expense. And then I stepped right up to him. I was done being nice. And Wayne, I said, if you, or Keith, attempt to harass or slander me, I will pursue all available legal remedies. I have a file on everything. Including his affair. I have a PI on retainer. Do you really want to go down this road? Now, I think it's time for you to leave. Get out of my apartment. He looked like he wanted to argue more. He looked like he might even want to shove me. But I think the look in my eyes, and the mention of PI on retainer, finally got through to him. He huffed. This isn't over. Oh, I think it is, I said. He grabbed Keith, and they had a whispered, angry conference in the hallway. Then Wayne left, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the frame. Keith just retreated to the spare room, slamming his door. The atmosphere was worse than ever. And Keith's little pranks started to get meaner. Keith was even more hostile after that. He was clearly furious. He was embarrassed that his big brother's intimidation tactic hadn't worked, that I hadn't crumbled. So, he escalated. He went from passive-aggressive to just destructive. I came home the next day, after another long, stressful day at work. I had left some important work documents on the kitchen counter. They were the printouts for my big presentation. The one for my promotion. I'd stupidly left them out. And now, they were soaked. Someone had accidentally spilled an entire cup of cold, black coffee all over them. They were completely ruined. The ink was running. They were just a pile of wet, pulpy paper. Keith was, of course, nowhere to be seen. He was at the gym. Oops, I could almost hear him say. So clumsy. I had to reprint everything. I was up until 2 a.m. redoing all my notes, my hands shaking with rage. But the real, true, final straw, the thing that made me go from angry to cold, that happened 2 days later. I have a small, simple gold necklace. It was my grandmother's. It's not worth a lot of money, not really. It was part of a small inheritance she left me when she passed. It's everything to me. I wear it almost every day. I had taken it off to shower and left it on my dresser. The next morning, it was gone. My heart just dropped into my stomach. It wasn't on the dresser. It wasn't on the floor. It wasn't in the bathroom. Keith! I yelled. Have you seen my necklace? He came out of the spare room, yawning, rubbing his eyes. What necklace? My grandmother's necklace. It was right here. On the dresser. I don't know, Susan, he said, and he shrugged. You're always losing things. I didn't believe him. I also noticed my good watch, the one I bought myself when I got my last promotion, was also missing from its box on the dresser. I felt violated. A sick, horrible, crawling feeling came over me. This wasn't a prank. This wasn't passive-aggressive. This was theft. I waited until he went to the bathroom. I went to his side of the bedroom. The side I hadn't been on in weeks. I opened his drawers. Under a pile of his gym shorts, there they were. My necklace. My watch. And a pair of my good cufflinks my dad gave me, which I hadn't even noticed were missing. He was stealing from me. He was stealing my grandmother's necklace. I just stood there, holding my grandmother's necklace in my hand. I was shaking. Not from fear. Not from sadness. From a rage so pure and so hot, I thought I might actually explode. I confronted him when he came out of the bathroom. I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I just held the items up in the palm of my hand. He had the audacity to look ashamed, for a second. Then he tried to bluff. I was just keeping them safe for you, he stammered. You're so messy, and with all this chaos. I thought they'd get lost. I was protecting them for you. Get out, I said. What? I still have 2 weeks, he yelled, his voice cracking. Get out of my bedroom, I clarified, my voice shaking with rage. You can sleep in the spare room. Don't you ever touch my things again. I had had enough. That afternoon, I went to Best Buy. I bought a small, discreet, high-definition security camera. The kind that uploads to the cloud. I went home. I installed it in the living room, on the bookshelf, facing the main area, my desk, and the front door. It was motion-activated. Then I did something very important. I sent Keith an email. I wanted a paper trail. Subject: Notice of Security Camera. Keith. Due to recent concerns about my personal property being misplaced and my work documents being accidentally destroyed, I have installed a security camera in the living room. This is for my protection and the protection of my property. Susan. He freaked out. Of course he did. He came storming out of the spare room, his face red. This is an invasion of my privacy, he yelled. You can't film me. This is illegal. It's my apartment, Keith, I said, not even looking up from my laptop. It's perfectly legal. And you're the one who's been talking about trust for 2 months. If you're not doing anything wrong, you have nothing to worry about, right? The irony. Oh, the irony was apparently completely lost on him. Holly, the affair partner, seemed to have gone quiet. I hadn't seen any texts from her. I suspected Keith's current drama was a bit much for her. Or maybe he just wasn't interested in a man who was about to be homeless and jobless. Can't say I blamed him on that one. The deadline was approaching. I was not backing down. Every single stunt he pulled, every passive-aggressive note, every accident, every time I looked at that little camera, it all just reinforced my decision. He was digging his own grave. Metaphorically speaking. I was almost looking forward to November 9th. Well, it's done. Keith is officially out of my apartment. And more importantly, he is out of my life. Yesterday was D-Day. Or rather, E-Day. Eviction Day. And boy, was it a spectacle of entitlement right up to the bitter end. Keith, bless his delusional heart, seemed to genuinely believe I'd cave. He really, truly thought that, at the 11th hour, I'd burst into tears, rip up the notice, and beg him to stay. Right up until yesterday morning, he was still making comments. "You're really going to go through with this, Susan? You'll be so lonely in this big place all by yourself." The delusion was strong with that one. I had arranged everything in advance, like a military operation. I had a locksmith scheduled to come at 9 a.m. sharp. I had also hired a small moving crew to come at 9:30 a.m. I'd told them it was a small, contained move-out. And I took the day off work. I was not going to miss this. I wanted to be here. I wanted to oversee the final act. I was up early. I had my coffee. I was dressed, in charge, and calm. At 8 a.m., Keith finally emerged from the spare room. He was still in his pajamas. His hair was a mess. I had already started moving the few boxes he'd grudgingly packed into the hallway. Most of his stuff, his clothes, his video games, his brand equipment, was still strewn around the spare room. "What are you doing?" he shrieked, seeing me move a box of his sneakers. "It's November 9th, Keith," I said, picking up the box. "Your 30 days are up. You need to be out." "But I haven't found a place yet," he whined. "You can't just throw my things out." "I'm not throwing them out," I said, my voice patient, like I was talking to a child. "I'm preparing them for you to take. Or, if you prefer, for the movers I've hired to take them to a storage unit. I'd already prepaid for it. The first month is on me," I said. As a final gesture of, well, something. "After that, it's your bill." This is when the meltdown began. Tears. Accusations. The whole 9 yards. "You're a monster, Susan. I hate you. How could you do this to me?" He was in mid-rant when the doorbell rang. 8:30 a.m. Right on time. It was Wayne. Clearly summoned as backup. He immediately launched into an attack. "You're actually doing this?" he barked, trying to push past me. I just stood my ground. "You piece of work. He has nowhere to go." "He's had 30 days, Wayne," I said, blocking the door. "Ample time to make arrangements. His choices led him here. You are not welcome in my home." Then, at 9 a.m., the doorbell rang again. It was the locksmith. "Hi," I said, smiling at him. "Come on in. Ignore all of this." Keith and Wayne tried to block the door. "You can't change the locks while I'm still here," Keith screamed. "Actually, I can," I said. "Your legal right to occupy the premises ended at midnight. The locksmith is here. Please step aside." I had also called 2 of my best friends, Pam and Cheryl. I'd asked them to come over, just as calm, impartial witnesses. And, let's be honest, a bit of moral support. They just stood there, arms crossed, looking completely unimpressed by the theatrics. This is when Wayne pulled out his phone and started filming. "The world is going to see how you treat men, Susan," he yelled, shoving the phone in my face. "Great," I said, not blinking. "Make sure you get my good side. And while you're at it, make sure you also capture the part where Keith admits to the affair that caused this. For context. You know, for your slander video." He stopped filming. For a second. The locksmith was a total pro. He ignored the drama and just got to work on the front door. At 9:30 a.m., the movers arrived. "Okay, gentlemen," I said. everything in the spare room, and all the men's items from the master bedroom and bathroom. Box it all up. Carefully. This is when Keith became hysterical. He was trying to grab things, yelling at the movers. Wayne was still filming and muttering about lawsuits. It was chaos. And then, the cherry on top. Around 10 a.m., the doorbell rang again. We all froze. Keith was in the middle of trying to wrestle a box of his video games away from a mover. Wayne had his phone up. The doorbell rang again. A long, insistent bzzz. I'll get it, I said, with a perfectly calm, bright smile. I walked to the door. The locksmith was just finishing up the new deadbolt. I opened it. And there she was. Holly. She looked incredibly uncomfortable. She was wearing yoga pants and a tank top, like she'd been in the middle of a workout. She was looking past me, into the apartment, her eyes wide with the chaos. Keith, she said, her voice small. You said you needed help? You said it was an emergency. Keith just froze. He looked like he wanted the ground to swallow him. And I just smiled. A bright, professional, welcome to my home smile. I extended my hand. Holly, right? I said. I'm Susan. It's so nice to finally meet you. Thanks so much for coming. She looked at my hand, completely bewildered. She shook it. Her hand was clammy. Keith needs some help moving his things, I continued, my voice cheerful, like I was hosting a party. Since you were the catalyst for this move, it seems fitting you assist. Wayne's jaw dropped. He was, for the first time ever, speechless. He was still holding his phone, but he'd forgotten to hit record. Holly shot me a look that could kill. Then she looked at Keith. What is going on? She's kicking me out. Keith wailed. I'm not kicking you out, I corrected, still smiling. Your 30-day notice has expired. And look, your ride is here. I turned back to Holly. I'd invite you in, but we're a little busy. As you can see. I'll never forget the look on Holly's face. The realization. The dawning horror that the psycho girlfriend Keith had probably been complaining about for weeks was me, the calm, collected woman who owned the apartment. And that her new man was a homeless, jobless mooch, with a bulldozer for a brother. Yeah, I said, mostly to myself. Reality bites. I looked at Keith. He was just standing there, defeated. She's all yours now, I said to Holly. Enjoy the me time, together. If you are still listening to this, first of all, thank you. If you're still here, please help me out by liking this video and commenting the number 1 down below. Just the number 1. It lets me know that you're real, and that you're amazing, and I understand that you've been on this journey with me this whole time. Your support is a huge encouragement, it really cheers me on. Please, comment the number 1 so I can see you. And now, let me tell you what happened next. As I was saying, the fight just drained out of Keith the second Holly showed up. He probably hadn't wanted to look completely unhinged in front of his new woman. The yelling stopped. The crying stopped. He just sort of deflated. It was pathetic, really. He, and a furious-looking Wayne, and a very, very reluctant Holly, just started trying to consolidate his belongings. It was slow. It was painful. And it was filled with muttered insults directed at me, which I cheerfully ignored. I just sat at my kitchen counter, sipping a fresh cup of coffee, and supervising the movers. My friends Pam and Cheryl were absolute rocks, just standing there, arms crossed. By 2 p.m., most of his stuff was out. It was split between Wayne's beat-up pickup truck, Holly's surprisingly small hatchback, which was now comically overstuffed with his designer sneakers and protein powder, and the mover's truck that was heading to the storage unit. The apartment felt instantly lighter. Cleaner. Keith was the last one out. He stood at the doorway, the new lock shining on the door. He tried one last time. "You'll regret this, Susan," he said, his voice quiet. "You'll never find anyone as good as me." I just smiled. I didn't say anything. I just smiled. "The locks are changed, Keith," I said. "Here's the address for the storage unit. And the key. Goodbye." I held out the piece of paper. He snatched it from my hand. He stood there for another moment, expecting. I don't know what. Was he expecting me to break down? To apologize? To beg him to stay? But I just looked at him. Then Wayne tugged his arm from the hallway. "Come on, man. Let's go." And they left. Holly had already scurried down to her car, like a kicked puppy. I closed the door. I turned the brand new deadbolt. Click. The sound. That click. It was the most satisfying, the most final, the most beautiful sound I have ever heard in my life. I leaned my forehead against the door for just a second. And then Pam and Cheryl, who had been quietly making a fresh pot of coffee and bagging up the trash this whole time, just looked at me. "Well," Pam said, holding up a coffee mug. "That happened." And we all just burst out laughing. We ordered pizza. We cracked open a few beers. And I sat on my sofa, in my quiet, empty, clean apartment, and I felt this incredible wave of relief. It was over. Oh, and the camera footage? It's golden. Especially Wayne's threats and Keith's accidental coffee spill. I probably won't ever need it, my lawyer says, but it's good to have. I got a few angry texts from unknown numbers later that night. "You're a cold bitch. Keith is a great guy, you'll be sorry." Probably his friends. I just blocked them. Wayne, I'm sure, will post some vague, passive-aggressive stuff on social media about toxic women and wolves in sheep's clothing. Whatever. My real friends, the ones who are here with me, they know the truth. This morning, I woke up. In my own bed. The apartment is quiet. It's my space again. I went to the kitchen. I made coffee. I sat on the sofa, and I listened to the silence. And I'm not even sad. I'm just done. There's a weird sense of peace. I know some people might say what I did was harsh. But his betrayal was profound. He made his bed, in someone else's apartment. And then I just showed him the door. Time to start my own me time. The genuine kind. Thanks for letting me vent, everyone. It actually really helped. If you've ever been in a situation like this, or if you just want to show some support, please let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you liked the story, a like would mean the world to me. Talk to you all soon. And so, this story reminds us of the incredible strength it takes to reclaim your worth when faced with betrayal. It's not just about ending a relationship, it's about standing firm for your values, refusing to tolerate disrespect, and recognizing that self-respect is the foundation of every healthy connection. Susan's journey teaches us that sometimes, letting go isn't a sign of failure but an act of courage, a declaration that you deserve better, even if it means walking away from what's familiar. Her resilience and calm determination highlight the importance of trusting your instincts and taking control of your life when others try to manipulate or undermine you. It's a powerful reminder that we are not defined by someone else's choices, we are defined by how we rise above them. True me time begins when you create space for self-growth, healing, and the freedom to build a life that reflects your true worth. What did this story inspire in you? Share your thoughts in the comments below or simply write good if you found the lesson meaningful. Let's celebrate the strength to choose ourselves.